Well, thanks everybody for coming to the library's program, Consumer Scams and How to Avoid Them. This is presented by Greene County Public Library, and it's a joint consumer program protections program. We've got three speakers with us: Catherine Wooling, Raymond Fuller, and Ryan Lippy. And first to speak with us today is Catherine Wooling. She's with the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. She is a U.S. Postal Inspector and team leader. So Catherine, if you you're going to talk to us today about fraud schemes and prevention tips that involve the U.S. mail. Please tell us all about it. We need to learn more.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Wooling, and I'm a Postal Inspector Team Leader out of the Cincinnati Field Office. And for those who may not know, we are Law Enforcement Division of the Post Office, one of two law enforcement divisions. And we cover primarily our external type criminal acts, I guess. We enforce over 200 federal laws that relate to crimes that impact the U.S. mail, our postal employees, and our postal customers. So we work closely with local and state law enforcement officers and other organizations, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office and local prosecutor's office. So today I'm going to touch on identity theft, and then just some prevention. I have a good slide at the end that I will send to you. And you can share it with whoever in the library that wants to see it, but it's some really good information there. But let me get to my identity theft slide. So identity theft is one of the America's fastest growing crimes. And it basically is where someone is obtaining your personal information, whether it be your social security number, your date of birth, your Medicare number, some number of value that allows them to gain something. So they can apply for credit. The recent scams are applying for unemployment benefits because of COVID, or they're applying using your Medicare number to get medical treatment or to get durable goods. They use it for that. So it definitely is a scam that's been on a rise. I've been in the agency 18 years, and it just seems like it never goes away. So we know it's the #1 fraud in the world, $16.9 billion annual hit to the economy in 2019. And then over the past 6 years, $97.8 billion was stolen using identity theft. So basically it's theft is acquiring the information. So we have two different fraudsters. We know that there's the kind that just want to go out there and steal it, and then they resell it to other people that are going to use it. So we have theft and we have fraud. It's a mandatory 2-year minimum sentence in the federal court system if they are charged with aggravated identity theft. And again, some of the lucrative types that they go after medical, they use it for medical scams, tax, children, social security numbers are a huge asset to them. They like to sell those because they have not been used before, and they're clean. So those are utility. They'll use it to open utilities and other benefits. Sources of identity theft can be as simple as losing or having your wallet stolen, your checkbook, your credit card. So that's about 14%. Family members, friends, and coworkers. Unfortunately, still people's identity, that's 14%. Credit card transactions accounts for about 13% of identity theft. Mail theft is still relatively low, thank goodness, at 4%. But then here's the other one. So other sources, data breaches, big one. Phishing, key logging, 55%. I wouldn't be surprised if that number is probably a little higher now. These numbers are a few years old. But I can tell you that I have been a victim of data breaches. I can't even tell you how many that, and many times my name has been exposed due to a data breach. Even through the government, our federal HR, if you will, OPM, they had a data breach and our information was put out there. So just so you know, I mean, when I fill out my background, every 5 years we go through background check. It's about 60 pages of information on me. So these criminals probably know a lot on me. So with that being said, what do you do? So we know we can protect our personal information. First and foremost, make sure you're shredding, you're identifying information. So anything, instead of throwing it in the trash, I will tell you, being a criminal investigator, one of the highlights when I was actually working cases was going out and pulling trash from my criminals because of the stuff they throw away. So if I'm doing that as a police officer, can you imagine what the criminals are getting out of your trash? So we have had a case, and this was several years ago, but it was down in Texas, where they went in, and it was an individual who had, that was his career, going around pulling stuff out of the trash, credit card applications. And he had an entire file cabinet in a system on applications. And weekly, he would just send so many in, use them, do a bust out scam, get as much money out of them as he could, and then move on. So it's very important that we're shredding our information. I live in the country, I burn mine just because I'm kind of lazy and don't want to take the time to shred. But however you can destroy it is what you need to do. The next thing would be check your credit report. So even if you're not someone who applies for credit, and I hardly ever go out and apply for credit, but I still check my credit report annually. You can get a free credit report every year. And actually, if you want to stage them, you can get a free one from TransUnion, one from Equifax, and one from Experian. If you want to stagger those, you can be checking it probably every 4 months. So that's a good habit to get into. And like I said, even if you're not someone who applies for credit, if the criminals are using your information, you want to be able to catch that relatively quickly so you can correct it. Or even if there's just an error on there, you want to be able to correct it relatively soon. And then another thing is, don't let your mail sit in the mailbox. And the analogy we give is, 20 years ago, we would have maybe walked out and left our house unlocked. Today, we can't do that. So you can't leave your house unlocked. You shouldn't be leaving your mail sit in the mailbox, just because it, if we know, inspectors know around the country, in different parts of the country, it's more prevalent than here, but we know that criminals can follow the carriers, and they go through and they rummage through to see if there's any financial documents or anything in there of interest that they may be able to use. So you don't want to let mail sit in the mailbox. So some other prevention tips that you can use, digital wallets. I'm not up on digital wallets, but it is something that we're told that is helpful. But I know it's a technology that will encrypt and tokenize data if it's stolen. So it makes the data useless. And it can be used for storing your passwords and different types of payment. So that's a thing that you can do. Have a zero trust contact policy. So this comes into play when you're getting those phone calls or text messages, and they're posing as your bank or your credit card company or Social Security or whoever. We need to get in the habit, just because of all the ways they can contact us, of not trusting the person calling us, hanging up, don't answer the phone, or just, if it is someone who's wanting something from you, just hang up, get the real number, and call back the number that you know is legit, and find out if it is true. But we shouldn't be giving out information when we haven't initiated the contact. Turn on two-factor authentication, and I butcher that word every time I say it. But basically all that does is, instead of just requiring your password, that now they're going to send you a number or code or something, either through your home phone number or through a text or something, that you also have to put in with your password when you're logging on. So that's another way to help secure your devices. Security freeze. I did this years and years ago when we started having data breaches. So I don't sit around and I don't worry about people opening up credit in my name. I still check my credit report every year, multiple times a year actually. But I have my freeze on there, and all I have to do is, when I go through my background check, or if I do need credit, I lift it for a day, or I can give someone specific authorization to run that credit report, and then it refreezes. So that is, if there's nothing else from this, is one of the things I think you should take away. Security freeze, they're free anymore. So it is an absolute, I think, a must for us to do. And then you can do account alerts and then update your financial providers. Basically, that means if your cell phone number changes, make sure you're letting your bank, your financial institutions, your credit card companies know this. In case they are sending you or trying to text you an alert, you know, if your card has been used in a scam, or maybe the transaction looks fraudulent and they want to notify you to see if it is you, if they can't do that if they don't have updated information. And this is the website. This is like, I think, the go-to website for identity theft. It's identitytheft.gov. It has the process. It'll walk you through if you've been a victim on what to do, how to do it. It'll give you form letters. It just basically walks you through the process, which I hear can be rather intense and grueling for people. So it's nice to have a go by. And then I will take you through, let me go back to the very end. And this is the form I'm going to send out. I can't go through the whole PowerPoint. It takes me over an hour to go through the whole thing. But so we did talk about make sure if you are a victim, you contact your credit bureaus, freeze your credit, contact your credit card companies and your bank. If the mail was used, contact the inspectors and file a report with us. If it is a credit card, Secret Service has jurisdiction over that. Your local police. I always encourage people to file a report with the FTC. And that's where the federal agents go to kind of pull in and try to create a case. And also your Attorney General's office, which Ryan's with, and he'll talk about later. But those are great places to go and make sure you're filing. We'll contact the AG's office as well to see if they have anything when we're trying to create put a criminal case together. And then this is the last form, and it's one that I use. I keep it. It's a good go-to, but it just has contact information on there. It has the Inspection Service, FTC, Ohio Attorney General, the Better Business Bureau. If you're giving money for charities and you want to find out if it's a legitimate charity, because trust me, right now we have COVID. You had the Houston crisis with the snow and the outages down there. I guarantee there's going to be some scams popping up on that. That's a good place to go and check out to see if these are legitimate charities. It also has the information on your credit bureaus, the annual free credit report. And then at the bottom, these are the ones I like. So there's the direct marketing one where you can opt out of direct marketing solicitations. There's one where you can opt out of pre-approved credit card and insurance offers. I've done both of those, and trust me, there are days I no longer get mail. It's a godsend. I mean, I don't like stacks and stacks and stacks of stuff coming in the mail that I'm not going to use or look at. So those are two great tools. And then the last thing to try to protect your identity, I will say, is make sure that you are setting up your account with Social Security. So Social Security is online now. And so several years ago, we were starting to see some scams where criminals were getting Social Security numbers and setting up accounts and diverting those Social Security checks to other bank accounts. Social Security acted quick and they set this up. So you can either go on and you can lock your account or you can set your account up. So about 6-7 years ago, I think I went on, I locked mine. I didn't need the information, but I'm retiring in a couple years. So I want to start monitoring and seeing what's going on. So I went into Social Security office to unlock it. I had to take some ID and stuff in for them to assist me. But that is very important to either make sure you're setting it up or you're locking it, one or the other. And that's pretty much all I have. I can take questions at the end if you have anything, but back to you.
Thanks so much, Catherine. And did you say that you were going to send that last slide? Would you send that to me and then I can send it to our live participant?
I will, absolutely. I'll get that sent out.
Thanks. That would be really helpful because I could see most of it on my screen, but not all of it. And so that would be Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So our next speaker is Raymond Fuller. He's a senior outreach and education specialist with the Office of the Ohio Consumers Counsel. He's going to provide us information on how to prevent slamming and cramming on your utility bills, as well as information on utility disconnection scams. So thank you, Mr. Fuller, for coming and telling us about this today.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and the Greene County Libraries for hosting us today. And again, it's great to have the opportunity, to kind of raise awareness about some scams and fraud activity any time of the year, but especially first week of March is historically, recognized as National Consumer Protection Week. So again, it's the perfect time to just, remind people of some of the things that that they may be at risk for. So again, thank you for that. And I just wanted to kind of share, probably the Attorney General's office and the U.S. Postal Inspectors don't need much of a explanation of who they are and what they do, but our office is a little bit smaller, not as much in the public eye. We're the Office of the Ohio Consumers Counsel, is the state's the residential utility consumer advocates office. So we are the legal representative in Ohio for residential utility customers. And mostly what that entails is representing consumers kind of at the policy level. So where the Public Utility Commission of Ohio, which regulates the utilities, or the legislature, the Supreme Court are making decisions that affect consumers, we're their advocate, we're their voice in those forums. So we represent consumers as a whole, as a class. And if customers do have questions, we have a customer call-in number, and I can share that with you now. It's 877-742-5622, and I'll repeat this at the end. And also our website is a great source of information, and that's www.occ.ohio.gov. So again, just information on what we're going to talk about today, and anything just to help folks manage their utility bills, knowing rights and resources and things to look for and things to look out for. So just by way of introduction, I was going to share information again on things that affect utility customers specifically. There's a lot of overlap in things that you just heard and that Ryan will talk about in a little bit. But one of the kind of consumer protection issues that we have advised consumers about for a long time is something called slamming and cramming. Slamming is when a customer, electric supplier, natural gas supplier, or telephone supplier is switched without their permission. And this was really prevalent back in the 90s when I started with the agency on telephone long distance. Folks might remember, and that's when I think telemarketing first became a four-letter word, is people would be always constantly hounded to change your long distance company. So besides just kind of the inconvenience of the telemarketing calls, many times folks were switched to another long distance company without their permission. And that happened in a number of ways. One of the most, I think, familiar ways was a lot of times these calls would be recorded, and the person might say, this is Joe Smith with XYZ telephone. Would you be interested in switching your long distance supplier? But first they would say, is this Jones? And Miss Jones might say yes. Well, you were just recorded as saying yes. And that could be manipulated on a recording to make it sound as if you're answering yes to the other question. So that's just one of the tactics. I don't know that we see as much of that these days on the telephone side, although it certainly can happen. But that same concept of slamming is now very common, or more common, with energy marketers. So folks might get something in the mail asking them to consider switching to another supplier. They may get a phone call asking them if they would be interested in saving money on their utility bill by switching to another energy supplier. Or oftentimes we're getting people come to the door, knocking on your door and asking to speak with you in order to try to sell you on that prospect. And that's all fine. It's not necessarily the best place to make that decision. It's kind of like an in the moment kind of confrontation, and you're not necessarily prepared for that. But the worst case scenario is almost invariably they'll ask to see your bill. And on your bill is your account number. That account number is all the information that marketer needs to sign you up legally. Now, if they do it without your permission, they've crossed the line, and now they've done it illegally, but they still have the ability to do it. So it's one thing to say it's illegal. It's another thing to say you can or you can't do it. So they can do it, they're just not allowed to do it. So we just want to make sure that people understand that, first of all, choosing an energy supplier is a choice. You don't have to. But secondly, don't share your utility bill or any other information with a marketer, especially in that kind of a scenario. I mean, if you think about it, you wouldn't give them your credit card or your driver's license. So, you know, it's the same concept. Don't share that information that could give them the information they need to slam you. And typically, if that's going to happen, they might save you money, but if they're using those kind of sales tactics, it's probably going to cost you money. You're probably going to pay a higher rate, and you will have to, if you even realize that this happened, it may be late enough that you've already paid higher bills for a number of months, and then you have to kind of go to all the, you know, red tape to kind of get your accounts straightened out again. So I guess the word to the wise is, you know, consider those kind of options. If you're interested, if you think you can save money, that's great. But don't do it, especially in a way that somebody asks to see your bill. They may ask to see your bill in a way that sounds very natural. Hey, let me see your bill. I can show you how much you're paying now, and now look at our offer. I mean, it sounds like a very kind of natural way to present that kind of a sales presentation. But the risk is, again, that somebody might actually take your information and switch you, slam you, and you're going to be, it's going to hurt you in the pocketbook. So that's the thing to do about that. And again, how to, you know, prevent that? Well, we just said, don't show them your bill. But we've heard this also. You might get a telephone call, and they might say, hi, this is so-and-so with the energy company. I need to speak to the account holder. Can you confirm your account number? Again, it doesn't kind of raise your suspicions, but you're essentially doing the same thing as if you handed them your utility bill. So again, it can sound very kind of unassuming and non-threatening, but that's information that you just want to keep to yourself. So, and I guess part of the flip side of this is what happens in the event that you did get slammed. Well, Ohio put rules in place that marketers have to notify you and give you 7 days right to cancel. And so this will happen. You'll actually get a letter from your utility company, not the marketer, but the actual utility company. It's sort of like a kind of a welcoming letter, and it'll say, this is to inform you that let's say your electric supplier has been switched to ABC Electric, and this is the rate that you agreed to. So first of all, if you didn't agree to this, don't think, oh, this must be a mistake. I didn't sign up with anybody. If you got that letter, you were switched, and you have 7 days right to cancel from the receipt of that letter, not 7 days from when you may have spoken to a representative. So there are some consumer protections built into this process. But if you get that letter and don't act on it, it may be tougher. You can always cancel, but there may be a fee to do it. So again, that 7 days is a good way to protect yourself. And it's really kind of like no questions asked. Maybe you signed up. Maybe your husband signed up and you came home and he said, oh, honey, guess what? I saved us a whole bunch of money. Somebody came to the door and I signed up with a different supplier, and you went, oh no. Well, when you get that letter, again, it's kind of like a get out of jail free card. You can cancel that. Even if you willingly and knowingly did it, no questions asked in that first 7 days. So it's just good to know your rights. If you have rights, but you don't know them, they're not doing you any good. So that's an important consumer protection right. So slamming is, again, switching your utility bill or account without your authorization. Cramming is another term that kind of came into vogue, in the telephone industry, when there might be charges that you didn't authorize. So your account didn't switch, but you're being billed for services that you didn't request. So if you had a telephone service, and then all of a sudden you're getting charges for, let's say, caller ID or call blocking or something like that. Sometimes it's just difficult to keep track of that, but obviously the best way to do that is review your bills, understand what it is that you're being billed for and paying for. And if there's a company on there that you don't recognize, or if there's charges for services that you feel are unjust or that you just flat out did not, request, then that's what cramming is. They cram charges onto your bill. So and again, can happen even on energy utility bills. A lot of folks see kind of a sales whatever offer to buy insurance on their pipelines or telephone service lines, and that may be a good idea. It may be something you might choose to do, but we've had reports of sometimes people being billed for those types of charges when they, again, did not authorize them. So cramming is something that can still happen. It's charges from your legitimate utility company, but for services that for one reason or another appeared on your bill without your authorization. So again, paying close attention, doing your due diligence and looking at that bill. And it is a challenge when you look at a utility bill. Sometimes there's so much information on there, it can kind of, make your, eyes go blurry. But take the time, look at your bill, understanding what you're being billed for. If you have questions, call the company and see if they can, through their customer service center, resolve them. Sometimes it happens that folks can't always come to an understanding with the utility company, or when we talked about a marketer slamming you. Our office can answer questions, we can try to advise people, but we may not always be able to resolve the issue ourselves. We have limitations on our authority. We can represent consumers, but we don't regulate the companies. So I did want to share that this number, it's for the PUCO, the Public Utility Commission of Ohio, is on your utility bill. So I can share it with you now, but it's also something that is on every gas and electric and telephone bill. So the PUCO, the Public Utility Commission, can be reached at 800-686-7826. That is their consumer hotline. And if folks do have a question or a complaint with the utility company, whether it involves slamming or cramming or any other issue, the PUCO is somebody that they can call. I gave our number earlier, and again, we certainly can advise people and say, yeah, it sounds like this happened, and but you may need to follow up with the utility company or the PUCO. So that talks a little bit about some of the issues like of slamming, cramming, things that happen on your bill. Typically with companies that are regulated by the state, or companies that are authorized by the state, like these energy suppliers. But the scammers are another breed altogether. And so the next thing I wanted to kind of share information on is the utility disconnection scam. So there's all types of scams. Ryan's going to share some more information with you. But again, with our focus being on utilities at the moment, it's a type of scam that I guess I'm not sure, Ryan, what is the term I'm looking for? The generic name for a utility scam is a imposter scam, I guess.
Yeah, an imposter scam or a utility disconnection scam.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really an imposter scam because they're making out
scam.
to be the real utility when they're really just a scam artist.
Right. That's the word I was looking for, is imposter scam. So they're pretending to be your utility company, and they're contacting you to say you're going to be disconnected if you don't immediately arrange for payment of your past due utility bill. And again, This is not the utility company. The utility companies will not call you and demand immediate payment. If you don't pay your bill, if I don't pay my bill, they can and will disconnect me, but they're not going to call me up on the phone and demand immediate payment. And so, but again, I think as with many scams, it's catching somebody off guard, being threatening and aggressive, and kind of puts folks on a defensive. And of course, who is going to be most vulnerable to this is maybe somebody that is behind on their bill. You know, oh gosh, I am late on my bill. Here's the utility company calling me. I better get out my credit card. Well, oftentimes, I don't think they would ever decline to use a credit card, but scammers many times use kind of non-conventional forms of payment, like a gift card. Like maybe it's a Visa gift card, maybe it's some other type of gift card, or a Green Dot card, something where you can load money onto a card and give them a passcode, and then they can take it. It's almost like a modern version of kind of Western Union wiring money, but it's more of a kind of a electronic version of that. Utility companies aren't going to ask you, first of all, to pay immediately in that kind of a situation, even if you are at risk for shutoff. And they're going to do it through a more traditional payment, sending, you know, a money order or a check or a credit card payment. But again, when folks are caught unaware and they may be, you know, actually in that situation, those are the folks going to be most vulnerable. And of course, if you're in that situation, you're going to be somebody that's going to be able to least afford paying that. So now you've paid $300 to a scammer, but guess what? You haven't paid your utility bill. And now the utility company may be calling you or sending you a letter or leaving a notice on your door saying that you are at risk for disconnection. And that's when you might find out that, oh, I've been scammed. So that utility imposter scam, the disconnection scam, again, I think it's even more troubling just because nobody can afford to throw away $300, but the person who's behind on their bill because they're struggling to make payments is the one who's most vulnerable and can least afford that. So again, there's different kinds of imposter scams, but this is the one that really affects utility customers specifically. And it's important to know that if you're talking to somebody and maybe you're kind of challenging this a little bit, and they may give you a telephone number to call to confirm, well, guess what? That number is probably bogus. If you do have a question, look up the number on your utility bill for the utility company phone number that's either on the internet or on your bill, and call that number. But don't ever pay a bill, especially a utility bill, over the phone because somebody is threatening to disconnect you, because that is not how the utility companies operate. And that's probably a sign that you're dealing with a scammer. So those are a couple things that I wanted to share. I don't know that we have time for this, but I can't help but bring it up. I was talking to Ryan yesterday. My son actually got contacted by a scammer who was, and Ryan, I don't know if you were going to share this. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, go ahead.
He got an offer to, and it was allegedly being sponsored by the beer company Heineken, to do a car wrap, I guess basically like an advertising for Heineken. And he was going to get $300, I found out, a week to use his car as an advertising. And they actually sent him a check for $2,500, and he was to use $300 of that for his first weeks of pay. And the rest was to go to a person who was going to come to his home and do the car wrap and put the advertising on his car. And it's a kind of a new spin on an old scam. And I'll actually let Ryan kind of pick up the thread of how those types of scams work. But it's just something to talk about this stuff. And it's another thing, this literally happened last night. And when it happens to you, and even when I heard this, I thought, that sounds fishy, but I didn't know for a fact that it wasn't legit. And I tell you what, my son was pretty excited about the prospect of earning $300 a week. So, you can just imagine that people can be very vulnerable to that. But the way it happens, and Ryan can maybe go into more detail, is they'll typically ask you to cash that check and then send the extra money back to them. And of course, the check is bogus, so you're out that money. And many times you've wreaked havoc on your checking account as well. So, but I'll kind of wrap up with that. I appreciate the time, and if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Just to add on that, Ray, we just did a Twitter post on the car wrap scam as well this week, because we've seen a big increase. I mean, it's the counterfeit check scam, and
Yes.
Ryan will go into it, but we've seen a huge increase in that as well. So
Yeah,
it's
and-
unfortunate.
Yeah.
I think Ray's just upset because he wanted Heineken to pay him in beer instead of money.
I heard of a similar scam on the IRS the alleged IRS calling people and demanding immediate payment. I was at work and the guy in the cubicle next to me had a call, and it wasn't his first one, because I heard him getting agitated and saying, "I already told you people, I don't owe you any money. I paid last year, I'm good." And yeah, we had to like go, hey, you're being scammed. Stop
Yeah,
talking,
yeah.
hang up.
Yes, that's the best you can do, is hang up.
Oh, poor guy. Anyway, I did have one question for Catherine before you start, if I could, sir.
Sure.
I have LifeLock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do any of you have, well, not, I guess it's just not specifically for you, but do any of you have thoughts about that? I mean, I pay a hefty amount of money.
Yeah, I can tell you from my personal experience, I've never gone out and got one of the credit monitoring services, nothing against them, but I have my credit frozen, and I feel like that's a pretty good security for me, and I monitor my credit report. It may not give me instant if something is happening, but I know with that, no new credit can be opened in my name. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. That doesn't prevent anyone from getting my existing accounts and using them or anything like that. But I can't speak for it or against it, because I really have never used the product. I don't even take the free offers. My credit or my data has been breached so many times in so many companies. I have never ever signed up for one of the monitoring services. But I'm not speaking against it. So Ryan, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but
Well, I mean, I can't really speak for or against it, because we're the state. We're not going to endorse any products or solutions for specific companies. But there's so many things you can do for free or very low cost that you just have to weigh the extra benefits that LifeLock provides, like $1 million insurance and all this other stuff that they provide, with what you can do on your own for free. And that includes an initial security, an initial fraud alert, which is absolutely free and doesn't affect your credit score. And the security freeze that Catherine talked about is absolutely free. It used to cost $5 per credit reporting agency in Ohio, but now it's free nationwide. So there's more and more ways that you can do it yourself for free. But again, it's not going to provide you all the benefits of LifeLock, but it's going to provide you some peace of mind, and it may be enough to at least put you over the hump of, well, I don't feel as vulnerable now as I would have if I hadn't taken that proactive, action. But yeah, I can't really speak. In fact, I have done some of the credit monitoring services from data breach settlements before, and they're fine. I mean, I could imagine back in the day not using them, but since they're free for a year, sometimes they're free for 2 or more years, and they don't really ask for a credit card, so they're not going to automatically enroll me in the paid service when the free one expires. So I have taken advantage of that, and I'm fairly happy. I mean, I certainly I'm not out any money. And they're usually sponsored by one of the credit reporting agencies, so they have all my personal information anyway. So, what's the harm in at least signing up and trying to get them to monitor my credit, so I get an extra red flag in my face if somebody tries to actually get credit in my name?
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you all.
Sure.
And this is Tamar. I actually had a question for you, Catherine, that I always debate because I'm like you. I hate having to shred everything.
Yeah.
And, so I accumulated, I always have a box going of things I need to shred. And the box gets filled and I move that box into the garage and then I start another box, of stuff that needs to be shredded.
Right.
And eventually I found out that UPS will do it, has a shredding service.
Okay.
And I sent that off, I said, but that's another chore of having to take it down to UPS. So anyway,
Right.
so I'm always debating, like, at what level do I need to shred? Like, if it's just got my name and address on it, and it's some sort of mail, no, right? Okay, so that's okay. That can just go in the trash or recycling or whatever.
I mean, think about it. Yeah, they know your address if they're pulling it out of your trash anyway. They can get your name associated with it. That stuff's all over. To me, the stuff that's important is your social security number, your date of birth, your insurance number, Medicare number, if you have one, anything that's pretty unique to you, specific to you, that's just not going to be out there. Now, that's not to say, I can tell you that your information's probably on the dark web somewhere and it's being floated around or sold, whatever. But just to keep it out of the hands of the low tech criminals, that's the stuff that I would, and there are free shred days that you can go to, and usually banks or somebody like that will offer those.
Mhm.
But but I wouldn't I still throw out my, magazines that have my name and address on them. If somebody wants those, good, have fun, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's, it's the unique information. I just went through old taxes that I haven't gotten rid of, and looked up the holding period requirement again. So I have a stack of those that I need to burn or shred or do something. I'm probably going to burn them, but that's the stuff I don't want out there. Account numbers and stuff like that.
What about those? Now, I was thrilled to see on that last slide that I can opt out of the pre-approved credit offers and stuff, because I get a ton of those. And I've always assumed that I need to shred those.
Yes.
So
those are, that's what goes back to that big case we had in Texas. The guy had file cabinets full of those, and he was just rummaging through, doing so many a week. And we call it a bust out scam, where he was just getting as much money out of them as he could before the card was shut down. And those all came out of the trash. Those were offers that he would go around at night and just pull them out of trash cans. So trash bags. So those are the ones you definitely want to shred those, because they can open up credit in your name if you're getting those. But that pre-approved credit card offer thing, I did that years ago, and it's incredible. That may not stop credit card offers from your existing companies that you deal with, like Chase. I deal with Chase on some things. They may still send me an offer, but yet, it's going to stop from the other companies that I don't have relationships with. So.
That's great. I'd love to, because I have, unfortunately, I guess I'll have to keep shredding the ones that I already have sitting stacked up in boxes to be shredded,
Right.
And anything that still comes. But I'd love to be able to cut down on the amount of that. So I'm going to be making sure I get signed up to that. And then Ray,
I can.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
No, that's right. I was just going to tell you, I can tell you there are days I don't get mail anymore, which is, I work for the post office, which that's our business, but it's nice, not to have all that stuff just sitting around and having to get rid of it.
Yes, exactly. I want mail when it's significant mail that I actually want.
Right.
But I maybe don't want the junk, that has my identifying information on it. That's my concern. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I had a question for Ray. Because some of the stuff around utilities and everything, when you start talking, and I've also been to one of your colleagues' programs about all of these different scams and things. I don't know why it is, what it is about the utilities, but I start to feel a little overwhelmed about the ins and outs and all of it. And I'm thinking, maybe, is it just like try to tackle one thing first? Maybe you just start take a look at one thing first, and then, one bill and one, because it seems like a lot of different ways that these people can come at you.
So are you talking specifically about energy marketers, or I'm not sure what the issue?
Well, I mean, it could, well, it's that, yes, but it seems like all of it. It seems like there's a lot of different ways that.
Well, I mean, the utilities are a confusing industry for the consumer. I mean, the more you get into it, the more your head will spin. But, I mean, looking at a bill and seeing all that information. But I mean, for the most part, like the, Vectron Energy and DP&L and those companies, they're regulated by the state of Ohio. So there's probably going to be a minimal amount of things that the utility companies themselves are going to be guilty of. I mean, we could talk forever, and I want to leave time for Ryan, but as far as issues that can make you pull your hair out with utilities, but as far as the things that are like kind of non-regulated entities like marketers or scammers, then it's kind of like it's more of like the wild west. But again, I guess the thing, if there was a very specific issue that I could talk about, but again, in terms of utilities, yeah, it's confusing. It's like you have to pay your utility bills, and what is on your bill can be very confusing. But again, I guess that's one of the things that as an agency, as a resource, that if folks call us and they do have those questions, and like I think you kind of hinted out, it's almost like you kind of have to, kind of have a little bit of a laser focus to say, here's the question that I have, here's my concern, here's the issue, what are my rights, what is something amiss here? And we can kind of break that down, but you can get overwhelmed by the entirety of it. But again, I guess it helps to maybe be as specific as possible when you have an issue or a concern, and we can address those. Again, probably the best way is our website at www.occ.ohio.gov, or call us at 877-742-5622.
Okay, so there might be some information on your site, that, because if I couldn't take notes fast enough tonight on everything you were saying, I might be able to go to your website and get some more information.
Absolutely. And again, I absolutely, and give us a call too, because I mean, there's no substitute sometimes for talking to a person. I take those calls. We don't have dedicated staff anymore to do a hotline, but so even folks that have other full-time jobs take a turn on the phone. So we're there to answer questions.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks.
Did you have a question?
I will say maybe it's a false sense of security, but I kind of take note of variances in my bills. I kind of know how much each of those bills are each month. And if I see a variance, then, I'll do a little more digging.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that helps, or maybe it's a false sense of security because, and then I went on the budget for a couple of my utilities, which is nice. Once you've been a customer a year, I just moved here. You can ask for the budget. That doesn't mean charges couldn't be racking up behind, but you kind of see then how much you're out of variance for what your budget is each month too. Like if you weren't on, it says if you weren't on the budget, you would have paid this much this month. And, and so that's, I don't know, call it false sense of security, but that's what I do.
It's the first line of defense. Looking at your bill is, seeing if something jumps out at you. Like I said before, kind of a strange name or a charge or a service. And again, that doesn't always mean that there's not a valid reason behind it. But it's the first step in, being able to monitor and see if something might not be quite right. And again, the next step maybe is giving us a call.
Great, thank you guys. I want to introduce Ryan Lippy. He's a consumer educator for the Ohio Attorney General's Office, the Consumer Protection Section, and he's going to present on internet and social media scams. Thanks, Ryan.
Great, thanks. I appreciate it. And hopefully I'll live up to the promises that Ray and Catherine put in me. In terms of what I'm going to talk about, I'm mostly going to talk about internet and social media based scams, but these days just about anything can happen online, anything can happen electronically. So it sort of opens the floodgates to just about every scam we see. First thing I want to mention is family emergency scams. if you have ever looked on your Facebook account or your Twitter account and someone sends you a notice and they look like a Facebook friend and they claim they're stuck in another country and they just need a few $100s, or they say their family's going through a medical emergency, they just need a few $100s. You're not alone. I mean, that happens a lot with when Facebook and social media in general are either hacked or accounts are duplicated using people's photos and their real names. So if you get a call like that, it's one thing, but if you're getting just a message through the internet, through Facebook or Twitter, contact that person to make sure they're okay. But usually those are sort of the foundations of some of the family emergency scams. Same thing can happen over the phone. I mean, they have the infamous grandparent scam where grandchildren are impostered and they call up grandparents, people they know are older, and say, "Grandma, Grandpa, it's me, Johnny. I was on spring break and they found drugs in the car and my friend and I are in jail and we just need $300 to get bail money and then we'll be able to get out. And please don't tell mom and dad because I'm really embarrassed about this trouble that I'm in." The grandparent scam is just one variation of the family emergency scams. And that's what we see sometimes on social media through Facebook and through some of the instant messaging programs, is the Facebook emergency scam. I mean, there's just so many different kinds of imposter scams. Some of them are more prevalent on the internet. Some of them are more prevalent over the phone. For example, Social Security Administration is impostered all day, all week, all year long with one of the most common scams that we see in the category of imposter scams. And that's when they tell you your Social Security number's been withdrawn or it's in trouble and you're never going to get a Social Security check again because somebody used your social to commit an offense of some sort. So we see an awful lot of that kind of imposter scam. But I did want to stick to some of the stuff that's online. One scam we see a lot of also is the computer repair scam. So that hits a couple of different ways, because not only is it based on the internet and what we're doing on the internet, it also can be prevalent through our computer usage as well. If your screen goes red or goes blue and tells you to call an 800 number, that is a computer repair scam. They tell you your computer has a virus. You did download something or go to a website that brought on some kind of message to your system that may not even show up right away, but it does not mean you need to call the 800 number, because that is usually a scam computer repair call center offshore somewhere where they very much act like real tech support, except they'll steal your personal information and your money without doing any work for it. So with the computer repair scam, it can happen a few different ways. One I just mentioned to you, and that is where your screen turns a color and you're given an 800 number, or a pop-up window pops up and it says you have a virus, call this toll-free number. Another way it can happen is if you're looking for a legitimate computer repair or tech support solution. These outfits out there are such organized criminal activities, they even buy advertising on lots of the search engines. So if you Google Microsoft tech support, you may see in the sponsored results at the very top of your search results an ad that was paid for by a scam artist claiming to be Microsoft tech support. They're not, but they want to sit back and let the calls roll in of people that think they're Microsoft tech support, so they can offer you assistance for hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. The other way this can happen is a cold call. If somebody calls you up and claims to be tech support, claims to be Microsoft, claims to be some big company's tech support division, saying you have a virus and that they want to help you get rid of it. that is a scam. If it's a call you're not expecting, it's most likely a scam. So what they'll want to do is get remote access to your computer, access from far away. That can be done easily given, some programs that are free, sharing of codes on the internet. You can let anybody you want access your computer. But obviously with a scam artist, it's very dangerous and it can cost you money and personal information as a result. So if a stranger, somebody you didn't call, asks to remote into your computer, your answer is no, have a nice day, I'm hanging up the phone and I'm calling some legitimate tech support solution, or I'm going to go to my neighbor or friend that's in IT or that knows a little bit more about computers than I do to have them look at my computer and make sure that there's no malware. But these scammers just usually cold call and hopefully hit a number of people whose computers are really operating slow, because so many computers do that. They want you to think it's truly tech support calling, when the fact is there's no way they can tell if your computer has a virus over the telephone or before they even get you on the phone. So that's the computer repair scam. And that again can happen through the internet, through emails, through pop-up windows, messages like that, but it can also happen oftentimes over the phone. One thing I wanted to hit hard this time in the presentation is phishing and spoofing. Phishing, when spelled with a PH, not fishing in the Miami River, but phishing with a PH, phishing for personal information. Phishing is when someone is looking for personal information from you by posing as a legitimate bank or a legitimate credit card company or someone you legitimately do business with. They're committing fraud. They're obviously up to no good, but they will do something like devise an email, stealing a company's logo, claiming they're your bank and claiming your account's been compromised, and that you need to click on a link usually and put in all kinds of personal information to restore your account. Now, it's all a fictitious story. None of it's true. But what they're hoping for is that you take the bait, believe your account is really in jeopardy, and do as they say so they can get your personal identifying information. And they'll usually ask for much more than any bank or credit card company has any business asking for. A lot of these website links, again, stealing the logo, stealing information from the real website of the real company. They'll ask for your PIN and the password and your account number and your social security number and your mother's maiden name. Why not? They've already gotten you to click on the link. They already have you believing that it's somebody that it's not your real bank. It's not your real credit card company. So they ask for everything under the sun. So don't fall for those phishing scams. If anybody contacts you unexpectedly, hang up. And if you do business with that bank or that credit card company, call them back at a number you know is legitimate, the number that's on your statement, the number you find out from their real website, their legitimate website. Don't ever call back using a phone number that the potential scammer gives you, because that may be a phony call center. And they've had, with the IRS imposter scam, with they've gotten dozens and dozens of perpetrators at call centers in India. They've arrested these folks for impersonating the IRS and for trying to swindle Americans out of hundreds of dollars at a time. So that's sort of my spiel on phishing. Don't fall for the bait. Now, there's also something called spoofing. And spoofing is where scammers use a disguise to mask the phone number they're really calling from. They can use spoofing technology, just like they use internet-based dialers. They can use spoofing technology that's available to put whatever phone number they want you to see on your caller ID screen. So if I'm in Cincinnati and I want to scam somebody, I'm going to probably use, let's say, a local phone number, maybe a 937 area code for the Miami Valley or a 513 area code for the Cincinnati area. I'm going to use those area codes so I can get you to pick up the phone, because I know that most people pick up local phone numbers. If they think it might be someone local, they're more apt to pick the phone up even if they don't know that exact phone number. A lot of times they even do neighbor spoofing, where they will change just the last 4 digits of the phone number and make the first 6 digits your area code and your exchange. Again, if it's a phone number that's similar to yours, they think that you'll take the bait, pick up the phone, and start answering questions. So that is a little bit about phishing and spoofing. I would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about romance scams, because Valentine's Day was only 2 weeks ago. Romance scams and sweetheart scams is where consumers, especially older adults, lose the most money of all. It's when a scammer builds up trust. They park virtually on dating websites, creating phony profiles. The scammers will be on bulletin boards, on chat messaging systems, posing as your next love. And they will come out and tell you that they're temporarily located overseas, perhaps due to a military assignment or a mission trip, or that they're an oil driller offshore. And they'll find one excuse or another to tell you they're out of the country, which is probably where the truth stops. They are out of the country, but not because of any of their stories. Now, they'll share photos. They'll wrap you up in a conversation. And as you might expect, older adults love that conversation. And they sometimes prey on lonely folks. They sometimes do, they'll just throw out lots and lots of profiles and hoping that people will bite and take an interest in them. And again, they're using stories that sound like possibilities. They might say they are a military officer stationed on a base far, far away. They'll say they're a consultant for a business and they're outside of the country. And they'll build trust in you for a couple weeks, maybe even a couple months, as they earn your trust, not introducing money until they think they can get away with it. So they claim that they're your new love, your latest romance, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, even fiance. There have been cases in Ohio where people have had fiancés without ever meeting them in person, believe it or not. These are people that fall in love and they're trapped by these romance scam artists. And then they'll introduce money into the picture. They'll say, well, I have a family emergency. There we go again with the family emergency. Somebody needs surgery, and I can't believe this, but my stepson needs surgery, or my niece or my nephew's in medical trouble, or my ex-wife got in an accident. They'll come up with some family emergency to try to get money out of you, cashing in literally on that friendship and that romance that they've had with you for the preceding weeks or months. Sometimes they'll tell you they can't cash a check because, remember, I'm in a foreign country. I'm actually American. Wink, wink. I'm actually American, and I can't cash a foreign check, so I just need you to wire me money, or I just need a few $100s in gift cards to get overseas to me. So or they'll say they want to come meet you, and I can't buy a plane ticket because I can't get any money. I have no access to my local currency in this other country. So they'll claim a story where they want to come meet you. And there have been cases where poor folks, because there are cases where these older adults will even show up at the airport waiting for their next love to walk off of a flight, not realizing they've been scammed, and all that money that was supposed to go to the scammer for the family emergency, or the scammer for the plane ticket, or the scammer to go on leave, it was actually all just a waste of money. Just a scam, all a scam. And this is where older adults actually spend sometimes their life savings invested in these kinds of romance scams, not realizing that it's a scam, thinking it's legitimate all the way through. Now, when it comes to romance scams, you certainly want to check out anybody you meet online. And by check out, I mean doing a reverse image search, which you can find out how to do that online. Just Google reverse image search, and you can find out how to look and see whether somebody's photos they're sharing with you have been used anywhere else on the web. It'll crawl the web and immediately look for the use of those photos on any other profiles or on any bulletin boards. And that's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, if it's used a lot, you know they're recycling the story over and over again, and most likely it's just a scam story that's been posted on bulletin boards, and there are actually bulletin boards devoted to outing the scammers with their photos, with their stories, with their all the facts they say about themselves to lie and coerce people into establishing relationships with them. They actually have a lot of that posted on bulletin boards. That is really good research to do before you start any kind of internet-based relationship. And suffice it to say, learn a lesson from everybody that's been caught up in romance scams. Make it a hard and fast policy to never give money out to anybody you have never met in person. If you just continue that mantra and don't let anybody talk you into any kind of exceptions to that mantra, you will be a step ahead of the scammers if they try to contact you, at least with the romance scam. Plenty of other scams out there. These days, so much happens online. There's also a lot of sweepstakes and grant scams. And with sweepstakes and grant scams, they might be impersonating Publishers Clearinghouse. They might be impersonating a foreign lottery. They may be telling you that they are the government and they're going to offer you a grant. Sometimes they go through Facebook lists and they tell friends, I saw your name next on this list. There's thousands of dollars at stake here. If you just do what I say and give out your personal information and contact this person, you'll be able to get thousands of dollars in riches. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. In these cases, it's way too good to be true. There's really no free money out there. The closest thing is the stimulus, and there have been plenty of scams that have moved off of the real stimulus checks, trying to fool people into parting with money in order for the promise of getting more of a stimulus, or them needing a deposit for a stimulus, or them needing to verify your name and your social security number to get you your stimulus check. All of those are just bogus plays on the fact that there is real stimulus money that everybody is going to be entitled to. You've already gotten some of it. More of it may be around the corner depending on Congress acting. But when that hits, and if we get another $1,400, if you make less than $80,000 a year, that's what's in play right now. It hasn't been passed by the full Congress yet. But if we get $1,400, you better believe the scammers are going to go back, read that news item, and start trying to scam people out of their personal information or money with that news story. Oh, you don't understand. The stimulus is very confusing, sir. I can get you money right away if you just give me your social security number. Nobody from the government is going to call you directly about the stimulus money. Not unless you hear it from a legitimate news source that it's going to happen, or unless the government legitimately contacts you from their email address, their website, their phone number. And if you hear something like that, check with friends, check with neighbors, call the library. We're here, being hosted by the library. That's a great source of information. If you think someone is legitimate, find the real phone number for them through the library or through their real website and call them and inquire. So if you have questions about the stimulus, call the IRS or call your congressman's office. Call anybody but somebody that cold calls you claiming to be the government, because they're not going to call millions of people giving them giving them some story about how they need personal information from you. The government simply rarely works like that. In fact, there have been lots of calls just based on the new Medicare cards that have come out with the new Medicare numbers. There have been calls saying, oh, you need a new card and we just need to verify some personal information. We need your social, we need your full birth date, we need all kinds of personal information. Could you imagine a policy that would have the federal government calling every single Medicare holder in the United States with you not hearing about it first from a legitimate news source? The chances of that are zero. So if it sounds fishy, it probably is. And if somebody calls you claiming to be from the government, whether it's Medicare, Social Security, the IRS, the Postal Service, the FBI, the CIA, anybody under the sun, call the legitimate organization, not the phone number they give you. Call the legitimate real office that you know of. 1-800-MEDICARE is the easiest number to remember. If anybody calls you claiming to be from Medicare, hang up and call 1-800-MEDICARE. That is the real true number for Medicare. And so if you get a handy list of federal government phone numbers, or keep a phone book. Do they still make phone books? I don't even know if they still make phone books, but we fought that fight, Ray. When I was at Consumers Counsel, we told them not to get rid of the white pages.
I still get them. We got them here in Beaver Creek. Yeah.
Good.
My sister got them in Massillon. So,
Oh, great.
They toss them like at your house. It's not like they're, but yeah, they're tiny compared to the past. But
they're tiny, and usually they're yellow pages, which to me means advertising money for the phone company. They're not the white pages where very few people are paying to advertise. The free listing we used to get that listed every residence in a municipality or in an area code, very hard to find these days. But keep a list of phone numbers near you that you get from a legitimate source. So if you get a call, the most common scams right now are Social Security Administration, probably still the IRS scam a little bit, and just all these other imposters that we see. I mean, they call up saying they're the local police department. Hang up and call the non-emergency number of your local police department and ask if they're looking for you. Don't count on a cold caller to tell you the truth about what they're really calling about. So that is my dose of information for the evening. I've got lots more. I've got packets. I've got all kinds of information if anybody wants to ask me questions. But I tried to isolate this to just internet and social media scams. And remember not to overshare. A lot of people get a lot of information about you and your family tree and your potential passwords and your potential security codes just by looking at the information that you disclose on your social media accounts or through the internet. So be very careful and treat your personal information as precious as you do your money. Thank you.
That's great. My father actually was spoofed, whichever one it was, by somebody very sophisticated. They knew a lot about our family, and I mean, a lot. It was frightening how much they did know. And he was this close to going to the bank to get money out of his account, but he was not able to drive at that time. He's older, of course, and so he was on medication. He couldn't drive, thank God. And his wife stopped him. She was like, Bob, stop, you're being scammed. I mean,
right.
he totally believed it. They made it so convincing.
Well, and just think of all the different places scammers can get information from. There's databases, there's genealogy, there's social media, there's newspaper obituaries, there's public records, there's everything under the sun. And they can even get marketing lists that are meant for marketing professionals. They'll buy them with a stolen credit card. I mean, whatever works.
They were pretending to be a sibling of mine who'd been in an accident and had injuries to their face, and so they couldn't speak clearly.
Yep,
and
family emergency scam.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. My poor dad, we just could not believe, he's getting older, so it was like, well, maybe he's getting older, but we could not believe how close he came to going to the bank.
And if they can get a list of vulnerable seniors, vulnerable older adults, and they just do that grandparent scam all day long, just all day long. And for the very few people that respond these days, because a lot of people know about the grandparent scam, for the few people that respond, it's free money in their pocket. And there's very little overhead to being a scammer. They're in Jamaica, they're in Ghana, they're in Nigeria, they're in other countries where they can do internet dialing for literally tenths of a penny probably per minute.
They even called him twice and, and kept him going. And it was, and it's just really frightening and very sad that, that can happen.
There have been cases where they've waited on the phone for the victim to go get the money order or get the get the Western Union or get the gift cards. They'll wait on the phone. They don't care. What's a few extra pennies if they're going to get free money?
Very sad. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Brian, I was just going to say, maybe you can confirm this. It also seems like if you've been scammed, you're more likely to be scammed again because
Absolutely.
that information gets traded amongst that community.
Yeah, every
right.
time, I tell everybody when they answer the phone, they're more likely to get another phone call because scammers are just looking for people to pick up the phone as an entryway for them to commit their fraud. So the best thing to do with a robocall or any phone number, and I can say this, it's 2021 and we've gotten fed up with robocalls and fed up with scams. Any phone number you don't recognize on your caller ID, send them the voicemail or send them to an answering machine. Check your messages, by all means, check your messages, but if it's important enough for them to tell you about, they can leave a message. And make sure that all the phone numbers you need are in your handy smartphone if you have one. Make sure that all of your, make sure you know the number that your doctor's office is going to call you from to make it a little more plausible that if they call you up, you're going to be able to answer the phone. But let them leave a message if you don't know the number. Call them back. Check your messages all the time. Call them back, and it'll save you money and personal information as a result.
I just want to say thanks to you all. It was very informative, and I really appreciate it. Even though I was I think the only one on. So.
Well, we're
I'm
recording this,
appreciative.
so Greene Library patrons, people on the internet, they're going to be able to see this in the future. So,
Great.
yeah, this is being recorded by the library. So special thanks to the library for recording this.
Absolutely.
And if you are not watching this live, let me give the phone number for the Ohio Attorney General's office. And I know Catherine and Ray will do the same with their respective agencies. My phone number for the Help Center. The Help Center at the Ohio Attorney General's office is 1-800-282-0515. That's 800-282-0515. That's the Help Center for the whole Ohio Attorney General's office. No matter what you need from the AG's office, if you think you need something from us, call the Help Center. And our website for the consumer protection section is www.ohioprotects, plural, ohioprotects.org, O-R-G. So www.ohioprotects.org.
Catherine, do you want to share any website or phone number information on your end?
Yeah, so our website's pretty easy. It's www.uspis.gov. So that's for United States Postal Inspection Service.gov. And then our phone number is 877-876-2455. But you can do anything you need just by going to the website. But if you don't have that, you definitely can call us. So again, thank you to Greene County Library for having us and letting us speak and give some of our knowledge and prevention tips to consumers.
Thanks, Catherine. Ray, I know you mentioned your phone number. Do you want to mention it again?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. 1-877-742-5622, 877-742-5622. And the website is www.occ.ohio.gov.
And your department is called what?
The Office of the Ohio Consumers Counsel is the agency.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I'm Tamar Creaky with the Greene County Public Library. I think this is great information, really important to get out there to communities and individuals, and appreciate your time this evening.
All right.
Great.
Great, thanks so
Have a
much.
good evening.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Have a
Lamar.
wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.